After 5 years of marriage, my wife, Sarah, took a 6-month leave of absence to attend the funeral of her old flame. I went to the airport to pick her up, only to find her with a protruding belly, pregnant with someone else's child. I asked her if she was pregnant, but she slapped me hard. Are you crazy? Alex is already dead, and your suspicion is disgusting. She continued, even if I were pregnant, it would never be with your child. Sarah flaunted her 3-month pregnancy photos on social media. Everyone at the law firm knew the child wasn't mine, laughing at me behind my back. Later, I found out that her old flame wasn't dead. He had faked his death to transfer his debts to me. Sarah had trampled on my dignity and love without a second thought. I knew our marriage was over, and it was time to let go. Knowing that Sarah was returning from the funeral, I drove to the airport to pick her up. It was our anniversary, and I had bought her a necklace she'd always wanted. But as soon as I arrived at the airport, I was stunned. My smile froze as our eyes met. My petite wife had gained weight, and her belly was slightly swollen. It was obvious she was pregnant, and she even showed signs of morning sickness. I could barely recognize her after 6 months apart. Sarah, my child-free wife of 5 years, had taken a 6-month leave to attend her old flame's funeral. Though I was curious, I didn't dare ask too many questions. After all, her old flame, Alex, had died in a car accident. I could understand her grief and her desire to mourn him. However, something about Sarah's current state didn't seem right. I rushed to meet her, only to be met with a barrage of insults. Are you crippled? Why are you so slow? She snapped. I presented her with a gift, but she didn't even glance at it. She tossed my carefully chosen present into the trash and walked straight out of the airport. I grabbed her luggage and hurried after her, softly asking, why have you gained so much weight? Are you pregnant? Before I could finish, Sarah rolled her eyes. The next second, a hard slap landed on my face. John Miller, what do you mean? Are you saying I'm fat, or that you think I'm pregnant? Her slap stung, leaving my face burning. I stood there, stunned, clutching my swollen cheek. Sarah, however, continued to yell at me, as if my question had exposed a shameful secret. Are you insane? How could you suspect I'm pregnant? Alex is dead. How could I be carrying his child? She raged. Your suspicion is disgusting. Even if I were pregnant, it wouldn't be with your child. Her words pierced my heart like needles. I was in too much pain to breathe, let alone argue. I had always wanted children, but Sarah had insisted on being child-free since our wedding. I had loved her for 8 years and finally agreed to her terms to marry her. To protect our marriage, I had tolerated everything, never complaining, but my tolerance hadn't earned her affection. Instead, she seemed to have grown more irritable, especially after attending the funeral. The moment she saw my car, she sneered. That old car again? When will you ever be able to afford a Rolls-Royce? She hailed a luxury car and left without looking back. As she got into the car, I noticed a new tattoo on her neck. It was the letter, likely for Alex, her old flame. All these years, she hadn't forgotten him. A pang of sadness shot through me, and a bitter taste filled my mouth. I went home alone while Sarah took a taxi to the law firm. I prepared dinner, bought her favorite cake, and sat on the sofa, foolishly waiting for her. I reheated the food countless times, and the ice cream cake melted completely. It was almost midnight when I realized Sarah still hadn't returned. I called her several times, but the line was always busy. When I tried again, her phone was turned off. My heart sank. Perhaps she had forgotten our anniversary. I was so shocked by her swollen belly at the airport that I forgot to remind her. I thought she would remember, that she would at least come home for dinner. But I was wrong. Maybe she didn't care about me anymore. The thought of her possibly pregnant belly stirred anger within me. I remembered 2 years ago when Sarah discovered she was pregnant. She was furious, ready to tear the roof off. John Miller, are you crazy? Did you do this on purpose? She shrieked, grabbing my collar and slapping me repeatedly. Did you deliberately not use protection? Did you intentionally get me pregnant? Don't think you can tie me down with a child. I will never have your baby. I was stunned by her blows, and blood trickled from my mouth as I tried to explain. I knew Sarah wanted to be a top lawyer and wasn't interested in staying home to raise a family. I respected her wishes and had always been careful with contraception. But this time, it was an accident. Perhaps this child was a gift from fate. As an orphan who had grown up alone, I longed to have a child of my own, to love and cherish, to raise properly. It would be a chance to make up for my own childhood to give my child the love and care I never received. But despite my pleas, Sarah had the abortion. Even though the baby was already formed, she didn't hesitate. This incident had devastated me, and I spent a long time in despair. Sarah, however, remained indifferent, focusing solely on her work and her old flame. For 5 years of marriage, she poured all her energy into her career, while I took care of everything else. Sarah loved rare jewelry, so I traveled to Italy to buy her a pink diamond. She was a neat freak, so I learned to clean the house by watching online tutorials. I prepared special surprises for every holiday, but all I received were her cold stares. For years, I assumed this was just her personality. She didn't seem to like children and never posted on social media. Then one night, after a few drinks, I waited for her until midnight. She didn't come home, but a notification popped up, a new post on her social media. Blessed with twins. I'll be a mother of 2 in 4 months. So lucky. It felt like a pair of hands were choking me. I could barely breathe. My heart shattered. I realized she wasn't against children or social media. She just didn't like me. I sat on the living room sofa, drinking all the liquor I had stashed away. I filled the ashtray with cigarette butts, finally forcing myself to stop looking at Sarah's post. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. Perhaps Sarah had never cared about me. Perhaps she had only ever loved Alex. Sarah and Alex had been college classmates. She had spent 4 years pursuing him, hoping for a single glance, a moment of attention. Then, Sarah's mother was in a car accident. The small hospital lacked the necessary surgical expertise. They desperately needed a specialized doctor and a large sum of money for the surgery. At the time, I had just been accepted into graduate school. My benefactor, who was a renowned surgeon, had returned to the country and invited me to dinner. After much pleading, he agreed to perform the surgery for free. But Sarah's mother was saved, and my benefactor was stabbed to death by a patient's relative who mistook him for another doctor. I watched helplessly as the man who had supported me since childhood died in front of me. I was devastated, blaming myself for his death. If I hadn't asked him to perform the surgery, he wouldn't have died, and I wouldn't have carried the guilt for so many years. Sarah knew she was indebted to me. On the day her mother was discharged, she asked if I would marry her. After 8 years of secretly loving her, I immediately agreed. Later, I discovered that it was the same day Alex had announced his relationship with someone else. I gave up my dream of pursuing game development after graduate school. Instead, to understand Sarah better, I applied to law school. I graduated with honors, and instead of joining a prestigious firm, I willingly became Sarah's assistant. I always believed that Sarah married me out of gratitude or guilt. In the end, it was just a way to spite Alex. The next morning, I arrived at the law firm with swollen eyes. I had spent the entire night trying to figure out who the father of the child could be. She had been on leave for 6 months and was 5 months pregnant. The child couldn't be mine, and since her old flame was supposedly dead, it couldn't be his either. The only remaining possibility was that Sarah had cheated and gotten pregnant by another man. I wanted to confront her about it. As soon as I reached the office, everyone looked at me with disdain. At the conference room door, Sarah's intern, David, smirked at me. "You can't go in now?" Sarah's about to be promoted to a senior position at a top law firm. I heard it's all thanks to the baby in her belly. I was stunned, anger rising within me. Sarah was so desperate for advancement that she used another man's child to climb the ladder. David crossed his arms, his face filled with mockery. "Why are you angry? If Sarah gets promoted, you might get promoted too, thanks to the baby's father," he sneered. "Just wear your cuckold hat proudly, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to rise in the ranks." His words triggered a burst of laughter. Everyone knew I had been cheated on. After a 6-month leave, she returned pregnant and was immediately promoted. There was no way the child was mine. I clenched my fists and punched David, sending him sprawling to the floor. He covered his bleeding face and yelled, "John Miller, are you crazy? Why did you hit me? Your wife got pregnant by another man. Hitting me won't change anything. You're a cuckold. I bet your wife, who claimed to be child-free, just didn't want to have your baby." His shouts echoed through the law firm, drawing everyone's attention. Hearing the commotion, Sarah stormed out of the conference room. Seeing David on the floor with blood on his face, she rushed to his side, ignoring me completely. "David, are you okay? Is your face all right?" she asked with concern. I felt suffocated. My pregnant wife was caring for another man. Sarah stood up and pointed at me, yelling, "John Miller, how dare you hit him? If you've disfigured David's face, can you afford to compensate him?" David smirked triumphantly, and everyone whispered about me, calling me names. David came from a wealthy family and had used his connections to get into the firm. He was a spoiled brat, and no one dared to challenge him. I was the first. Even my wife of 5 years sided with him, disregarding my feelings completely. She slapped me hard in front of everyone, crushing my dignity. I mumbled, my gaze cold. "What did you say? You want me to apologize to him?" "But clearly." Sarah's eyes narrowed, her voice low and menacing. "Yes. Apologize to David now. You know who he is, don't you? How dare you hit him? Do you want to die? Who do you think you are? You're nothing, a loser. Apologize before David's injuries get worse." Her words were like fire, scorching my heart. David added fuel to the flames. "Sarah, he must apologize. But it's too late now. I want him to kneel and apologize. Otherwise, I won't accept it, and my father's company won't give you the contract next year." The mention of the contract made Sarah kick my knee and push me down by my collar. "Hurry up, kneel, and apologize to him. If you lose the contract with his father's company, I'll kill you." I felt like I was dying, my remaining dignity stripped away. I gritted my teeth and knelt before David, apologizing as everyone laughed at me. Only then did Sarah sigh and tell me to get lost. But this time, I wanted answers about the child before I disappeared for good. I grabbed her hand, my voice hoarse. "About your social media post, don't you have anything to say?" Sarah glared at me, embarrassed by my presence, and dragged me to the coffee shop downstairs. "Whose child is it? What were you really doing during those 6 months at the funeral?" I demanded. Sarah slammed her coffee cup on the table. "John Miller, you've gotten bold. How dare you yell at me? Who gave you the right? I don't care whose child it is. I'm going to have them both." When she mentioned the children, her eyes softened, and she caressed her belly, seemingly happy. But when she looked at me again, her gaze hardened. "Didn't you always want children? Now I'm pregnant. Shouldn't you be happy?" She continued, her voice righteous. "Don't worry about it so much. My children are your children, aren't they? Why do you care so much? As long as they're children, isn't that enough? Why are you being so petty? Don't you have a heart? These are living beings. Who cares whose they are? You should be grateful you get to raise them." I was about to explode. Sarah was openly admitting that the children weren't mine. She actually wanted me to raise children who weren't mine as if they were my own. I was being cheated on, and it was blatant. Sarah still thought I was her lapdog, willing to do anything for her like I always had. I had loved her for 8 years and had placed all my affections on her. So, after we married, I forgave her for every transgression, no matter how outrageous. Sarah was ambitious, her desire for fame and fortune exceeding that of ordinary people. During her years at the law firm, she hadn't focused on her cases but on how to get promoted. She lacked real skills and relied on my unwavering support. As her assistant, I diligently handled everything for her. She assumed I would never leave her, but this mysterious pregnancy was the final straw. Perhaps it was time to let go. "Let's get a divorce," I said. Sarah froze, disbelief in her eyes. "What did you say?" I said, "Let's get a divorce." I repeated. She scoffed, "Fine. Someone like you doesn't deserve children anyway. It's for the best that we divorce. The father of my children will never be an orphan. How else would he be able to raise them properly?" Sarah patted her belly smugly, her face beaming with joy. "Are you sure you can find a father for your children after we divorce?" She slammed the table angrily. "Of course. Because." She paused. "Anyway, it's none of your business. My children will be born into a happy family. He will marry me once I have this child," she declared with certainty. I had a hunch about who the father was, but perhaps happiness wouldn't be as she imagined. Even if she refused to admit it, the child was Alex's. It was the only explanation. A seed of doubt was planted in my mind. Alex came from a wealthy family. He was handsome and popular. That's why he had always been a playboy, even though Sarah had pursued him relentlessly for 4 years. Now, with Alex's sudden death and Sarah's inexplicable pregnancy, something didn't add up. "Fine, have it your way. I hope you truly get your so-called happy life," I said. Back at the law firm, everyone was gossiping about me. I can't believe Sarah made her husband kneel and apologize to protect an intern. Of course she did. Her husband is a freeloader. Without Sarah, he wouldn't even be a legal assistant. The whispers ceased when I approached. I knew I couldn't stay at this firm any longer. I had never been interested in law. I only pursued it for Sarah, sacrificing my own dreams to support her. Now, everything had vanished. It was time for me to leave. Suddenly, it occurred to me that Alex might have faked his death. Perhaps he staged the funeral to give Sarah an excuse to get pregnant with his child. I texted her my suspicions. I packed my belongings, submitted my resignation letter, and as I walked out of the firm, I received a text message. My bank accounts and all my assets had been frozen. I also received several debt notices, indicating that I owed a huge sum of money. Just as I was trying to make sense of it, Sarah pulled up in a Rolls-Royce. Alex seemed to be sitting inside. She stepped out, her pregnant belly prominent, followed by several burly men. They grabbed me without warning, and Sarah kicked me to the ground. She choked me and slapped me repeatedly. You think you can ask for a divorce? I'll be the one to do it. You're no longer of any use to me. The child in my belly is Alex's. Even if you know he faked his death, it's useless. You'll pay his debts for him. She beat me until I coughed up blood, my head spinning. Through the haze, I saw Alex's smirk. I finally understood. Sarah had used some trickery to transfer Alex's debts to me. Seeing me covered in blood wasn't enough for her. She ordered the men to break my hands, ensuring I could never pursue game development again. Even if we divorce, I won't let you off easy. Let's see how you survive with broken hands. Sarah pulled out a divorce agreement from her bag and threw it at me. This is the divorce agreement. You'll get nothing. All your assets will be transferred to me. She forced my hand to sign, and despite my resistance, they beat me even harder. After I signed, she ground my hand under her heel until it was a bloody mess. They drove away, leaving me unconscious in a pool of blood. I finally saw Sarah's true colors. She didn't love me. She was willing to destroy me, to cripple me, for her old flame. My heart ached as I realized that all these years of affection had been misplaced. This time, I was done with her. I would never love her again. I woke up in a hospital bed, surrounded by people. Someone screamed, "He's awake! He's finally awake!" An elegant middle-aged woman rushed to my side and hugged me tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. "Son, my son, you're finally awake. I thought you wouldn't wake up, that I would lose you forever." I looked at her confused. She examined me closely, tears still streaming down her face. "Son, how did you get hurt like this? Did someone bully you?" "Don't worry. If anyone bullied you, I'll fight for you." I spoke with difficulty. "Ma'am, you got the wrong person. I'm not your son. I'm an orphan. I grew up in an orphanage. I don't have parents. They abandoned me." The woman cried even harder. No, you are my son. It's my fault. I lost you." She clung to me, her tears soaking my hospital gown. My bed was surrounded by people, and several others were recording with cameras. I learned that this elegant woman was my biological mother. I had been kidnapped by human traffickers when I was very young and eventually ended up in an orphanage. They had confirmed my identity through various tests and investigations. They had finally found me at the hospital after a long search. Looking at this heartwarming scene, I felt like I was dreaming. I had always longed for a loving family, for parents and children. Sarah's betrayal had shattered that dream. But now, with my mother's appearance, it seemed to be within reach again. Suddenly my phone rang. It was Sarah. She was calling to inform me about our divorce appointment at the Civil Affairs Bureau. My voice was hoarse as I forced out the words, "Fine. As long as you're sure. Don't regret it." I wouldn't look back. I wouldn't soften my heart. Sarah's voice was filled with contempt. "Of course, I'm sure. Who wants to be with a loser like you? Alex will marry me soon. Just wait and see how you'll be chased for debts. I won't regret it." She hung up with a triumphant laugh. My mother, hearing the conversation, was furious. That woman is shameless. Not only did she cheat, but she also dared to transfer all the debts to my son. This is outrageous. That Sarah did such a dirty thing behind your back. I won't let her get away with it. I calmed her down, assuring her that I would handle Sarah myself. That afternoon, I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau in a wheelchair and divorced Sarah. My mother hired the best doctors and medical team, not only restoring my hands but also my overall health. I had also cleared all the debts that weren't mine. I became the CEO of my mother's company, truly experiencing what it meant to be in a position of power. After all, my mother's company controlled a significant portion of Beijing's industries. Eliminating anyone was as easy as crushing an ant. I saw Sarah and Alex again at a business dinner. I had canceled all orders from Alex's company and recalled the loans given to them. I also informed all major companies in Beijing not to provide them with any assistance. They were desperate, scrambling for help, but no one was willing to lend a hand. They finally managed to arrange a meeting with me through their connections, begging for my help. Sarah, heavily pregnant, waited nervously at the entrance of the private room. When she saw me approaching in a suit, her face contorted with disdain. "John Miller, what are you doing here, you loser?" She didn't know I was the CEO. She only knew that the person's last name was Miller. I didn't want to engage with her and tried to walk past her into the room. I wanted to see how Alex was doing without his wealth and status. Sarah blocked my way. "You can't go in? This dinner is important. Don't try to cause trouble. Losers like you will never be able to enter a place like this. If you dare to make a scene, I'll kill you." Our argument grew louder, attracting the attention of those inside. I was speechless. Suddenly, someone inside recognized me and rushed out, greeting me respectfully as Mr. Miller. Alex froze when he saw me, and Sarah stood there, dumbfounded. The next second, Alex slapped Sarah hard across the face. "Are you blind? This is Mr. Miller. How dare you yell at him? Come in, Mr. Miller. We apologize for our ignorance." Sarah wanted to retort, but could only cover her face and sob silently. Alex extended his hand for a handshake, but I ignored him and walked past him into the room. Later, through extensive investigation, I discovered that Alex had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to harm me. He had faked his death in a car accident, gotten Sarah pregnant, and led her to believe that they would get married. Sarah, blinded by her infatuation, had fallen for it. She used illegal means to transfer Alex's debts to me. Then, through threats and coercion, she made me sign the divorce agreement, leaving me with all of Alex's debt. She wanted me to be burdened with enormous debt and ultimately die a miserable death. But she had forgotten that she was also a pawn in Alex's game. She never imagined that I was the long-lost son of a wealthy businesswoman. More importantly, Alex was already married. I finally realized that Alex had probably never loved Sarah. He had merely used her. I knew the truth, but Sarah seemed oblivious. Alex offered me a cigarette with a fawning smile, bowing and pleading. "Mr. Miller, this is all a misunderstanding. You're a magnanimous person. Could you please?" I tossed the cigarette away and kicked him to the ground. He landed with a thud, his body trembling. "What did you say? I can't hear you. Why don't you say it again?" I summoned a dozen burly men, all with menacing expressions. No one at the table dared to speak, their heads bowed in fear. The memory of Alex using Sarah, framing me, and trying to cripple me filled me with rage. I swore I would make him suffer the same pain I had endured. Alex scrambled to his feet and apologized profusely. He slapped himself repeatedly. "Mr. Miller, I was wrong. It's all my fault. I was blind. If you're willing to help me, I'll..." His company was on the verge of collapse. He had already transferred all his assets. Now, it was relying on loans to stay afloat. With my withdrawal of funds, his company wouldn't last long. I ignored his pleas and stepped on his hand, grinding it into the floor. "Ah!" Alex screamed in agony. Sarah watched, her heart aching, but she didn't dare to intervene. I continued until his hand was a bloody mess, then said slowly, "I'm not entirely unwilling to help you. Kneel and beg, and I'll consider it." I looked down at him with disdain, my eyes filled with mockery. I wanted to crush his dignity, to make him never able to hold his head up again. When the laughter subsided, I said, "Well, I've considered it. I don't want to help. Not only will I not provide any more loans to your company, but I'll also return the previous debts to you." Alex was struck dumb, then burst into tears. He sobbed and begged for my help. "Mr. Miller, I really know I was wrong. Please help me. Please don't withdraw your investment. The company will go bankrupt soon. If you're willing to help, I'll do anything for you, even be your slave." His cries filled the room. Watching him beg, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Evil would be punished. Suddenly, a cry came from the doorway. "What? My mother was in a car accident." Before the voice could finish, a group of people barged in and kicked Sarah to the ground. "You're the homewrecker who seduced my husband. You bitch. I'll beat you to death." I recognized the voice. It was Alex's wife. I had informed her about Alex's infidelity before coming here. Alex had no intention of divorcing his wife, let alone marrying Sarah. I had told her to come here and confront the mistress, preferably with reinforcements. The commotion outside was intense. Sarah kept calling for Alex, but he ignored her completely. I opened the door and saw Sarah lying in a pool of blood, covered in bruises. She looked at Alex with tearful eyes. "Alex, save me. Please save me." I stood aside, watching them beat Sarah until she fainted. Only then did I calmly take out my phone and call an ambulance. By the time Sarah arrived at the hospital, she had lost a lot of blood. The babies couldn't be saved. And due to the delay, she also lost her uterus. Sarah could never have children again. When she woke up, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably as she looked at the medical report. She asked if Alex had visited her, and I shook my head coldly. "You're still thinking about Alex? If your mother knew what kind of daughter you are, she wouldn't be able to rest in peace." I handed her her mother's death certificate, and she fainted on the spot. I had saved her mother years ago, and now she had died in a car accident. It was karma. We were even. No one owed anyone anything. Alex's wife, discovering his infidelity and debts, filed for divorce. Although Alex had come from a wealthy family, he had gone bankrupt 2 years ago. To repay his debts, he had married his current wife. His wife had been living abroad, unaware of his new debts. But this time, she wouldn't bail him out. He would have to face the consequences alone. When Sarah regained consciousness, she was still fixated on Alex. She desperately tried to call him, but the line was always busy. She cried her heart out. Finally, the call connected, but she was met with Alex's insults. "Stop calling me. Are you crazy? You're the reason I'm in this mess." Sarah sobbed uncontrollably. Alex, I was wrong. Please don't leave me. I can't live without you. You said you loved me, that you would marry me." Alex scoffed. "I would marry anyone but you. Give up. Get lost. Don't bother me again. You're the one who ruined everything." He hung up abruptly. Sarah was in despair. She finally understood that Alex had never loved her. Not in college, not now, never. He had only ever seen her as a pawn. He used her when she was useful and discarded her when she wasn't. He never cared about her. Sarah screamed in anguish. She tried to return to the law firm, but was rejected. She had relied on her connections and taken frequent leaves of absence. While she had a backer, the firm couldn't say anything. But now, she had nothing. Even her skills were largely due to my assistance. Without me, she was nothing. Sarah cried until she choked in her hospital bed. She had lost everything: her job, her only family, her children, and even her ability to have children. Alex, unwilling to let her off the hook, transferred some of his debts to her. It was because of the agreement they had signed. Sarah had thought Alex loved her, but in reality, he had been manipulating her all along. When Sarah finally realized the truth, she dragged her broken body to find me. She grabbed my hand and pleaded, "John, I was wrong. Please don't leave me. I can't live without you. I was foolish before. I didn't cherish you. It's all my fault." She was pale and frail, looking pathetic. The old me might have forgiven her unconditionally. I had loved her so deeply. A simple plea or a pout would have been enough to melt my heart. No matter what mistake she made, I had never truly given up on her. But now, I was utterly disappointed. I had seen her true colors. She was a materialistic woman who loved money and status more than anything. She loved Alex and everything he represented. She had never truly seen me, never appreciated my kindness. She had always trampled on my dignity and love. I let her go. I could never love her again. I shook off her hand and walked away. It's too late. Belated affection is cheaper than grass. I won't be soft-hearted anymore. I won't go back to loving you. Alex, burdened with massive debts, resorted to borrowing from loan sharks. The interest piled up, and he was eventually dismembered by debt collectors and his body dumped in the wilderness. He died a gruesome death, with no one to claim his remains. As for those in Beijing who had wronged me, I sought revenge on each and every one of them. They didn't deserve any respect. I repaid them for the pain they had inflicted on me. Sarah still refused to give up. She removed all her tattoos and got a new one on her neck. my name. She also found the necklace I had given her for our anniversary. John, I was truly wrong. I still love you. Look, I even got your name tattooed. She held up the necklace. I also found the necklace you gave me for our anniversary. We can definitely reconcile. She froze when she saw my fiancée, who was already pregnant. I waved for security to escort her out, afraid she would scare my unborn child. A year later, I got married and started a new family. We had a beautiful daughter. As for Sarah, I had long forgotten about her. Whether she was alive or dead, I no longer cared. All I knew was that I was happy now. The end.